Welcome back to another episode of All About the Gear. My name is Frederick Van... Oh, no, I'm not Frederick Van Johnson. I'm your host today, Doug Kaye, and with me is our usual host, Frederick Van Johnson. How you doing, Frederick?
I'm doing quite well, Doug. How are you doing?
I wanted to really push the Van in Frederick Van Johnson in there.
Thank you.
I didn't do quite a good job. Anyway, this is episode number 4 of All About the Gear, and we're going to be talking about the Sony NEX 5R camera. And because you've got one and I've never even touched one, we're going to turn the tables on the usual show. There it is. Say something about Frederick so we see your beautiful picture.
Ooh, look at that. So this is, oh yeah, it has to switch. Yeah, this is the beautiful NEX 5R that we're gonna dive into. I'm excited to be on this side, by the way, not doing the interviewing. So it's kind of calming and relaxing to. It's like letting somebody else drive on a road trip.
Yeah, but what's going to happen is once we get going, I can just, switch to another video. I can go out and have a smoke or something and come back, right?
Exactly.
All right, well, let's get into it quickly, as they say, because we want to keep these things pretty tight. I think you should tell us, first of all, how did you come to get an NEX 5R? You're not a Sony guy usually.
I'm not a Sony guy, and but I take offense to the phrase Sony guy, Nikon guy, Canon guy, Olympus guy. I'm a photographer guy. So, that may sound like a cop-out, but I don't think photographers should ally themselves with brands per se. It should be more about the art, and it should be more about what the thing can do. So I'm looking at it right now. I still have my my Olympus OMD, which I love. I'm in love with that camera. I still have a bunch of Nikon gear back there. I've got Canon gear, and I've got Sony gear now. Now, this NEX 5R, specifically, why would I be using this over an OMD, right? Because I had just bought the OMD, and I made all that stink about why I love the OMD in Micro Four Thirds, and here I am using an APS-C size sensor in this thing. It's hard for me to answer that. It's hard for me to answer that question. I'll say the one thing I'll say about this camera off the top before you get into your questions, Doug, is that this APS-C size sensor. Do I have it available back there? No, it's in my bag. My D7000, my Nikon D7000. The Sony people told me that this thing has the exact same lot number sensor that camera has in it. So imagine having. I mean, this thing is tiny. Look at that. I mean, look at this. It's like a lens with a back cap that looks like a camera on it. To have that sensor in this camera with me all the time, and with all this Sony tech in it, it's just crazy. There's just something to be said about that. So we'll get into all that.
Right. And which lens is that you got on there right now?
This guy is the kit lens that comes with the camera. It's the 18 to 35. And it's a variable aperture f3 5 to 5.6.
18 to 55, I think, isn't it? Not 35.
I'm sorry. What did I say?
You said 35. That's all right.
Yeah. 18 to 55. Yes.
Otherwise, it would be a little smaller than that.
It would be about that long. Yeah. This is 18 to 55.
If you take it off, is the lens heavier than the camera?
Yeah. Let's take a look here.
It looks like it would be, huh?
Yeah. It is. It almost feels the same.
Yeah.
It almost feels the same, but look at that.
I can reach out and feel that, yeah.
Yeah, look at that. I mean, they're very similar, and this is light. I mean, it's like it weighs. They both, it's just weird how much tech is in these things, and it weighs nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you think about the weight of the zooms on our big Nikons, and they're just incredibly heavy.
Right.
Absolutely.
But when you're using the big Nikons, like we were talking about before, and you feel the heft of a lens like this. It's like
it hurts just to look at it.
You want a piece of me, man? Come on.
Right.
But it's different. That's a 70 to 200. So.
All right. So what's it been like going out and shooting with this thing? I mean, you've been using it.
First of all, there's a learning curve, of course, because my brain is short-circuiting a little bit with all these camera operating systems. I mean, because I've got Nikon synapses in my head, I've got Olympus that I'm trying to get my brain around, and now I've added the Sony into the mix of the different operating systems I have to figure out. But once you get over that, and kind of figure out how the camera thinks, and where the buttons are, and how to get to the essential functions of the camera, it's really a joy to use. I mean, it starts up fast. I was out having drinks with Giulio Schiorio the other day, and we're talking cameras. Of course, he had his Panasonic GX7 with him, and I had this guy with me. We're just sitting at this place called Santana Row in San Jose. We're sitting out there, and some crazy car was driving down the street, and I just whipped this thing out. It was off. I whipped it out, turned it on, aimed, shot, put it back down. And I got the shot that quickly. There was no, okay, it's got a boot and splash screen, all that. It was just on, shoot, and go. And we were both like, that's pretty cool.
Now, is that,
you can do
is that any quicker than using your OMD? Would it take longer to boot up the OMD and get the shot?
I feel like, well, I didn't do a side-by-side test, but I feel like it would take a little longer with the OMD. And one of the reasons why it would take longer on the OMD is just that the little power button that they put on the OMD is like right in the lower right corner. So it's like you got to pick it up, find it, flick it, and then shoot. On this one, it's logically placed where you'd think it would be, right at the top there. Mm-hmm. Right. So here, to turn it on, you just go boop, then it's on. Turn it off, boop, it's off. Just like that.
You know, we're going to hear from all those OMD fans that their camera is just as fast to turn on as a Sony, and that none of them have trouble finding the button, right?
Yeah, I mean, hey, I'm an OMD fan too. Like I said, I love it, but I wish the OMD had this style button on it. This is the button that I'm used to on like my Nikon cameras. It's just right here by your trigger finger, and it's integrated with the shutter button.
Yeah. So how does it feel compared to the OMD in terms of the grip and the hold for it? I mean, you don't have it's not apples to apples because you don't have the exact same lenses on them, but in terms of, does it feel good in your hand?
It does. It does. You know what? Let me reach over here. We're gonna do this live while we're recording.
I'll see.
So I'm pulling out my nifty little ThinkPack camera bag here that has my OMD in it. So I'm going to show you these guys side by side, and I'll show you what it feels like. So right now the OMD has my walk around lens on it, which is my little 14 with a little camera strap.
Yeah.
So the main differences that I feel, this camera, and I've put this little leather half case on this thing, and this feels more like a traditional camera. It even looks like a traditional camera. You want to hold it like this,
mm-hmm.
and shoot. It has a viewfinder and high eye point viewfinder, electronic that I can shoot through. So I feel more like I'm serious about photography. I'm shooting with this thing. Now with this guy, it feels a little bit more casual, right? So when I'm shooting, there's no electronic viewfinder on this, so it's not like I'm holding up to my face. It's more of a arms extended point and shoot kind of experience. But I like that. A lot of people complain about that. I actually like having this big screen right there to compose with. So it's apples and oranges. These two guys, they're different, for me at least. They're different cameras, and they have different uses.
Mm-hmm. So we should say now that Sony's got the NEX 3, the 5, the 6, the 7. There are rumors about a full-frame Sony NEX camera coming.
Yeah.
Where's the 5 position? Do you know, relative to the 3, the 6, and the 7? What's it got? What's it missing?
Well, I'm not sure, because I'm not, like I said, I'm not an expert on the Sony line, and I'll tell you, this is kind of my gateway drug into the Sony universe, right? I think it'll be that way for a lot of people, because this is a really lightweight on your pocketbook, lightweight in your hand kind of camera. What does it retail for? Just over $500
mm-hmm.
for the body and the lens.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of positioning, I would push it more down towards the low end of entry-level cameras, but it's kind of a weird mix because it's a low-end priced camera. I mean, $500 is still a lot of money for most people on the planet, but in the context of camera gear overall, it's not a lot of money, right?
Right.
So when I look at this, I think of it as like a gateway into the Sony way of building cameras, the quality of the Sony sensor, the quality of the Sony optics, and once you get this, like I'll tell you, when I got this and I shot with it, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. NEX5R. I wonder what that 6 is like. Maybe I should go try that 6, because this is kicking butt over here. That if this can do this, what can a camera that's slightly more expensive do?
Well, here's a 6 sitting on my desk, and just to give everybody an idea, the 6, the biggest difference I think is the electronic viewfinder. The NEX 6 and 7 do have a electronic viewfinder that you can look through. So for people like me who have to wear bifocals, it's a much better choice, because otherwise looking at the that is like holding an iPhone out in front of me. If you see an old person with their head tipped back, that's the clue they're wearing bifocals. But this camera, as you said, the one you've got cost a little over $500. The NEX6 with a kit zoom, little different zoom, cost almost $900. So it's a lot more. It comes with a 16 to 50 zoom. Yours comes with an 18 to 55. Right. So there's a big jump between the 5 and the next step up, and then there's the NEX7 as well, which is sort of currently the high-end camera in that line.
You know, but I'll tell you, you have that viewfinder on there. But one thing, and I think that goes to the fact that I think Sony's targeting this at consumers, obviously, because of the price and the size and the startup speed and all that. But one thing I think that you're missing is the ability to do stuff like this and take this viewfinder and flip it all the way forward like that, right? Right. And it goes into what Sony calls selfie mode. And it's not just the fact that the viewfinder has articulated up to point at you so you can do videos of yourself or photos of yourself, but it actually switches the operating system or flicks a switch or whatever inside the camera, so that if you're taking a photo of yourself, it'll put a little graphical countdown meter on there so you can get yourself positioned correctly, and then it'll focus, then take the photo. So it understands that you're trying to do a shot of yourself.
It looks like it ought to have a teleprompter built in.
You know? Yeah, but the problem with that is because of how far it is, or how close it is to you, you'd be looking like this. So, hi everybody.
Just put 1 or 2 letters up at a time. To give people an idea, the NEX6 and 7 have articulating screens also, but they don't go into selfie mode. This one comes up to horizontal, as you can see there. Right, let me do that. So this goes up to horizontal, which is fine because you can hold that down at your waist or down even lower. Going down is interesting. It only goes down that far. Let me see if I can angle this to show it. And originally I thought that would be a problem, but this still works just fine for holding this up above your head to shoot pictures of, over crowds, things like that. So I can sit there and hold it. I can't show them the camera, but if I hold it up way high, I can still see this. And I shot video over the top of my head and above the rest of the crowd. So it doesn't have the selfie mode, and it's interesting that the camera seems to, I don't think they put selfie mode on a professional camera, so that tells us a little bit about who they're aiming the camera at.
Exactly. They should have, I was thinking that this would have been, maybe they could still do it, but this would have been great to market as like the YouTube or internet or Instagram camera, because some of the features that we're going to talk about in a second make it ideally suited for that. So here's how this guy articulates, Doug. So you can, like I said, you can flip it up into selfie mode, but then it pops out like this so that you can make it higher. You can aim it down, kind of like that. It's probably at the same angle that yours goes.
Looks like a little steeper, actually, yeah.
Yeah, and then you can, of course, go up like that if you want to shoot from waist level.
Very cool. Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about those apps. While we're talking about the social aspect, we'll jump around a little here. Yeah. Tell me about these apps. First of all, these are apps that you install into the camera, right?
Yeah, and that's weird. And that was another thing that got me when I first started playing with this camera is you turn it on and you go into the menu mode. I'm going to do it while I talk so I don't mess up. And I don't know if you'll be able to see this on the screen, but let's see if it'll focus. Can you see that a little bit? At the bottom there is an icon or a selection that says application, and if I go into that, it comes pre-installed with direct upload, so I can shoot and upload directly from this camera to Facebook if I wanted to. No computer involved, no nothing, no Wi-Fi card, nothing. It just will go directly to Facebook. It's got picture effect. It's got smart remote control, which is an app that allows you to connect it to your smartphone and then control the camera from your smartphone, kind of like what the new QX series lenses do, but you can take pictures from your smartphone, so you can trip the shutter from your smartphone, or you can take pictures with the camera and have them show up on your smartphone or tablet, kind of like an invisible tether. So it's really cool. But the cool thing in this camera that I liked was, I think it's just the overall fact that when I turn this thing on, and I went into that mode, it asked me to authenticate it to my network. Right? So right now, this camera's on. It is sitting on my home network right now and able to access the Sony Play Memories app store and all that. and I can go in there and install new apps. Like, for example, one of the apps I'm going to install today is an app called Time Lapse. So you can do time lapse photography and add that sort of functionality into the camera. So you can be sitting on the couch and you're like, you know, I want to do some time lapse photography tomorrow. And you sit here and you download the app into this thing, play with it for a little bit, and now you have time lapse capabilities, which is it's amazing that you can do.
That's pretty cool. Now, do they have apps from third parties, or are they all supplied by Sony?
Right now, I think they're all supplied by Sony, although I don't. At least they're branded by Sony. I don't know who made the apps, but right now I think they're all Sony, but I don't see any reason why they couldn't allow third parties to go in there.
With those QX lens cameras that we've talked about on This Week in Photo, I've heard that they've opened up an API to allow third-party developers to write code for iOS and Android. And if that's the case, we don't know exactly what they have in common. Whether if you can write it for those, it'll also work on the NEX 5 and 6 or not.
Yeah.
I don't know. The NEX 7, by the way, does not have downloadable apps, and it does not have Wi-Fi. I don't know if the replacement for the NEX 7 will, but even though 7 is more than 6 and 6 is more than 5, the 7 is actually an older camera.
That's what I just learned today. I don't understand that Back to the Future kind of thing.
Yeah, they just rolled a die and came up with 7. So
there you go. There you go. Whatever it takes. So the 6 is the powerhouse. The 7 is the not so capable version. The 7 is the big one. The 7 has the 24 megapixel sensor. Oh, okay, there you go.
And that's the real advantage of that camera. And it has a different set of controls called the TriNav controls. We could talk about that later. But
TriNav, yeah.
TriNav, they call it.
Yeah.
Which means it has TriNav, meaning it has 2 knobs. Go figure that, right? In fact, I'll show you the difference.
Not even going to break my brain.
So hold that up for a second, and talk to me so we get the video on you.
There you go.
And show me how, can you switch modes, like from aperture priority to manual? How do you do that on that camera?
Well, you can turn it on. Well, first you turn the camera on, obviously, and wake it up. But to go into the way that I would do that is I would just go into shoot mode. So you notice there's no dial, like your NEX 6 has a dial on there to go into the different modes. This one on the screen in the back, if you can see that, let's see if we'll get the exposure to drop down. Maybe not. Yeah, oh, there you go. You see that? Right there? So on that screen, as I rotate this knob, I can go into the different modes of the camera. So here's aperture, here's shutter, here's manual, etc. So if I go into manual, I can change the f-stop and shutter speed by using this dial and this dial on the back, respectively.
Right.
So and that's how you do it. Literally, it's a flick, 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 and you're changing your mode.
So that's the NEX 5. Take a look at this. Let's see if I can look at it. This is the NEX 7. It's very much the same thing, except I have 2 knobs on the top where you only have 1. And those 2 knobs mean that I can control 2 different functions. They're soft, so I can get exposure compensation on one and aperture on the other, as an example. Or I can do the same change you did. The big difference with the 6 is the 6 has the more traditional mechanical mode dial. And that's one of the things that makes it a little nicer. The other functions are done by a wheel that sits right underneath here. You can barely see it here. But this wheel rotates right underneath that.
So it's a dual wheel kind of thing.
Yes, exactly. They're concentric. So this has, I think, controls that a lot of people like more, but that's only on the 6. The 7 and the 5 seem to have that more menu-driven system.
Yeah. Love it.
Okay, so it's got these downloadable apps. You can do all sorts of neat things like time lapse and remote control of the camera.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about the technology in it. Tell me about the sensor. What do you know about that sensor? Have you had experience looking at the pictures? What do you think of them?
Yeah, and I'll show you these later. Actually, we'll embed some of these in the blog post for this episode, some of the shots that came out of this particular camera. But like I was saying, the sensor that's in here is the same sensor that's in the Nikon D7000. In fact, Sony is the supplier for Nikon for those sensors, and it's got, the whole thing of it goes up to, was it 25,600 ISO or whatever that high number is that no one ever shoots at.
Right.
It says it will go that high, but my experience with this camera is probably, I don't think I've shot higher than 1600 with it, or I haven't had the necessity to go higher than that, and those images have been perfectly usable. And like you said, it's that APS-C size sensor, so it's larger, than the Micro Four Thirds sensor in this camera. But I'll tell you, I'll do in the post for this episode, I'll shoot some side by side images from the OMD and from the NEX 5R so that you can see the difference in the quality. I'll do some close-ups just so you can see the detail in there. But so far, in practical use, in day-to-day use, I haven't had any problems, even with this kit lens. It's been a joy to shoot with, and I haven't gotten to a point where I was thinking, crap, I grabbed the wrong camera. I've been able to execute the shot that I wanted to get with both of the cameras, the OMD and the NEX.
Now, have you had a chance to shoot any video with the camera?
I have. I've shot some video with it, though I haven't done any put it on a tripod, shoot professional video, that kind of thing with it. And I think that the main function of that is, though Sony put 2 mics on this thing, so if you can see on the top there are two microphones. There's a left, it's stereo, so there's a left and a right. There's one right there.
Yeah.
So there's 2 mics on there, and it does really good. It'll record really good audio, actually, especially if you're holding the camera and talking and narrating the scene. It's perfect. But if you can tell by this mic, I like good sounding audio. And the problem with these kind of cameras, and the same thing is with my OMD, though they have an adapter for it, you can't plug a mic into it. It would almost be perfect if I could just plug a lav mic or a shotgun or something into this and roll with it, but there's no way to get audio into this camera. And on that, even if I could plug, put a shotgun mic on this camera, there's no hot shoe on the top of it, so I can't do the whole thing of being the videographer, the YouTuber on the go with a little pocket camera, which means you can still use it for video. Like, I'm going to do some tests today in a couple minutes actually with this camera, but I have to record the audio separately on the Zoom H4n and then bring it all in together and match it up in the computer and do all that stuff. If I didn't have to do that, I can just go straight into it with a mic. That would be so much better.
Yeah. I just checked. The NEX6 does not have a mic port, but here's the NEX7. Let's see if it'll focus. The NEX7 has that little red jack. That's an external mic jack.
The coveted red jack. Why don't they just put that on everything?
Well, I guess they're thinking about it. It depends how seriously these guys take video. I mean, now there's the all-important question that I have to ask, which, can you shoot selfie video?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Just imagine the possibilities.
I know. Of course. I mean, that's really all you want to do. You hold it up like this, and you're like, "Hey, look at me! I am in Thailand." Yeah, you can totally do that.
I'm not going to make any Anthony Weiner jokes for those who know him.
Yeah, let's not do that.
we won't go there. Yeah. Okay. Great. So
that's a nice hand you got there, Doug. By the way.
Remember, wait a minute, how do I switch cameras here?
I don't know.
There we go. All right.
There you go.
I could have left that on all day and never noticed that, right?
I know.
That's why we need a technical director. That's the reason, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Don't tell Alex.
I know. I know. Alex would be rolling his eyes right now.
Yeah. I also saw in your notes that the NEX5 has no built-in flash. Is that really true?
That is correct. There is no built-in flash on this puppy.
Nothing, huh?
No, this is bare bones, sleek, kind of consumer-grade camera. However, in the box, they do include a little flash that you can just stick in here, and it's got this little port on the top right there that opens
so
up.
it doesn't even have a regular hot shoe at all then?
No hot shoe, nothing. It's got this proprietary kind of jack here that the flash plugs into, and then you can shoot. Now, they tell me, Sony tells me that in this jack you can plug an audio adapter so that you can get audio into it, but which is kind of like they did with Olympus did with the OMD. You can do that. You can get it in there if you jump through a couple of hoops, but
that's like saying at some point they'll say, gee, if you take this camera, you can actually take the lens off and put it on another body. At some point the plugins become a problem, But that's really weird. I'm scratching my head. I'm trying to think if I know of any other camera, except the real high ends like the D4, D3S of Nikon, that don't have a flash. I mean, your littlest point and shoot, your iPhone, they all have some kind of flash built in.
That's true.
Not that a serious photographer really wants to use the on the camera flash, except for fill light panics and things like that. But that's really an unusual move, isn't it?
It is kind of unusual, but I'll tell you, in practical use, I don't miss the flash on this thing. I haven't once in the last couple of weeks found myself saying, man, I could have really got that shot if I had that little tiny pencil light of a flash that they gave me.
Yeah.
It's not really going to give you that much, especially with that big APS night, the sensor that's in the 7000 in here. I'm not missing a flash. But what I would say, the money that they saved by not putting a flash on this, I wish they would have invested it in an audio port and put that on this thing.
Okay. So for all you video users out there, this is not your primo video camera for sure.
Not if you want to do narration into the camera. You can do all kinds of B-roll and all that. It'll be just fine. But if you want to start doing narration and YouTube rants and that sort of thing, you're gonna have to record your audio separately.
So tell me, what else is this camera good for, and what is this camera not good for? And I'm trying to look at two sort of scenarios there. One is, if you only can afford one camera, is this a place to go? If you can afford another, let's say a higher end camera, then what role does this one play in your repertoire?
Well, that's a great question, because I think I have the gamut of cameras from this one through the OMD all the way up to the Nikon D7000 and all the way up to the D3, and in that range. So, and over the past couple of weeks, I found myself, thinking, which camera do I need for this? It's great to not have to say, okay, the only camera I have to shoot with is this D7000, so I'm going to make it work for everything. It's great to say, we're just going out for dinner. I may want to take a food shot, or I may want to do this or whatever. Then I can just grab this one. So this one, the Nikon, or the Sony NEX5R, I would say is pretty close to being a great, if not perfect, glove compartment kind of. I'm going to shoot everything and fill in the blanks with this because I want quality that's better than my iPhone. And on top of that quality that's better than that comes out of my iPhone or my Android device, the fact that this thing has built-in Wi-Fi and the accompanying apps on both of those platforms, I can shoot and very insanely, almost magically quickly send over the images from this thing to my phone, do some quick Snapseed editing, and pump it up to whatever social network I want, right? So I don't have to, okay, I want to get this online quickly, so I'm going to shoot it with my iPhone and suffer with, the quality. I know the quality isn't as great as something with superior optics like this could do, so I'm going to shoot it just because getting it up online is faster. The fact that I can do it with this means I don't have to compromise on shooting, with the iPhone. So then the other thing is, when would I take the OMD? So I'm doing lots of creative stuff with this. I would say between these two cameras, I very rarely have to take anything else out, because this guy is going to let me do all of my main stuff. Like I can do my, like if I want to shoot images for compositing, if I want to shoot like portraits, anything like that where I need a long lens, I can do that with this guy, right? When I'd want to take out the DSLR, I think frankly is when I want to impress people. Right? If I want to take the DSLR out, that's going to be where I need to actually look like a professional photographer, and I need people to see me carrying around that long lens because they're paying me whatever $1,000 for the job. So I need to take that heavy gear with me. If I show up with this, they're going to be like, "We're paying you for what?" Even though this, if I showed up with this, even though I say, "Hey, but this has the same sensor as my Nikon D7000 in it," they're gonna, it's perception and reality.
So you said something really interesting, which was the Sony NEX5R is a camera you can imagine leaving in the glove compartment.
Right.
The Nikons are something you carry out if you want to impress somebody. The OMD is something you go out when you actually want to do your creative work. Is that a good sort of way to think about these different cameras?
That's perfect. Yeah. That's perfect. If I'm only impressing me, if I'm the only person that I need to impress, and that's the images that I import into Lightroom later, then who cares what I bring? But it's funny, but there's one caveat with that, because I did a test. I took the NEX5R to a game, to a scrimmage, a high school football scrimmage, a couple weeks ago, and the next week they actually had their first kickoff game, and I left the NEX at home, and brought the Nikon with the long lens and the monopod and all that stuff. And I'll tell you, halfway through the game, I was wishing for my wishing for a smaller camera, but a smaller camera with a longer lens on it. Of course, you're not going to shoot high school sports with this lens, but I was wishing for this because I was like, you know what? Why do I have all this stuff out here? I don't really need to have it with me.
Do you think if you had, you know, a 200 millimeter lens on the Sony, or you know, it'd have to be even less. It would have to be only a 150 on the OMD.
Yeah.
Do you think the cameras are responsive enough to shoot high school sports? Can they focus fast enough?
I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say that's an unqualified no, though. Like I said, I only shot one game with it, and this is me shooting with a brand new camera that I'm just sort of fiddling around with and figuring out the functions of it. But the difference, the responsiveness difference of going from one of these mirrorless cameras, whether it be the OMD or the NEX5R, to a Nikon was, I mean, it was a palpable night and day kind of feel. Maybe some of it was just like, oh wow, I remember how fast this focusing is, you know. But going out there, the Nikon, you know, it's doing focus tracking, it's locking on, it's doing the whole 9 yards, right? It knows what it's doing, and it is purpose built for capturing that kind of action. These guys, I think, are, especially this particular camera, the 5R, I think it's more general purpose, right? It's not specifically, it's designed to be easy. It's designed to allow the photographer to get a really good shot, especially if you're using the scene modes, right? So if you put it on the scene mode, it's you're telling the camera, I'm making portraits, you know, so blur the background, you know, look for faces and prioritize that. Or you put it in sports mode, it's going to say, well, this fast-moving stuff there, and make sure you capture that. So use a faster shutter speed and as wide an aperture as you can without blurring, all this stuff, right? So it's making those intelligent decisions for you. On the Nikon side, when I go into that thing, I'm making the intelligent decisions. I'm saying, okay, you know, I know that because I'm shooting football, I need to be shooting at a fast shutter speed. I need my ISO at this. I'm going to pump my ISO up as the light outside goes down. I'm making those decisions rather than just pulling the camera out, turning it on, and shooting.
I think if people come from the world of Nikon D3s or Canon 5Ds, they have no idea what a scene mode even is. But I think it's interesting. It's another case where so much of the new technology comes in from the smaller, less expensive cameras. Things like face recognition. Things like, you know, make the shutter release when someone smiles.
Right.
You know, make the shutter release when the second person walks into the frame. You know, or two seconds after the person walks into the frame. I mean, this is wild stuff. I still don't know who uses that stuff.
You know, I don't know, but it's one of those surprise and delight things that I've found. Because I'll tell you, I was shooting an infant the other day, and you know, I'm saying, okay, let me get a nice shot. You know, the kid is a newborn, and kid's in the little crib thing, you know, and I'm composing, and I'm looking, and this is with the NEX5R. I look at the back, and it flips into baby mode.
Is that what it's called? Baby mode?
I guess it just said baby.
Oh my God!
And I was like, how the heck does my camera know that I'm shooting a baby?
That's spooky.
It knew, you know.
Wow.
But like I say, surprise and delight, because I was like, okay, this thing is Terminator. Pretty soon it's going to tell me the name of the kid. You know?
Yeah, before the baby's even got a name.
Exactly. This baby is 1 hour old. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, there's some wild stuff out there, and I've picked up, you know, some of the cameras you can even register faces, so it's going to recognize particular individuals, and it's going to focus on them. You know, it's like the mother-in-law setting. You make sure the mother-in-law is always in focus at the wedding, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, this one has that one too. This one has the feature of the smile recognition feature, where you can tell it to, and some Android phones like this Moto X will do it too, I believe. But this, you can tell it to only take a photo when your subject is smiling, or like you were saying, let the smile be the shutter release or trigger the photo taking. So you compose it on someone, then when that person smiles, and you can even control the degree of smile. You can say, it's just a grin or a strong smile showing teeth. You know, when they hit that mark, the camera says, okay, there's a smile, and it's in focus, and it takes the picture. So that that kind of stuff you can do with mirrorless, right? And that is the automation. I think Sony's engineers are just, they got to be brilliant guys over there doing all this stuff. But you pack all that technology into these cameras, and that's what you're buying when you get this. Comparatively to a more manual, professional quote system, it's going to assume that you know how to take a picture when someone smiles,
Right.
And you can do it yourself.
Pretty good. Hey, we're going to wrap it up, but before we do, I want to give a special thanks to borrowlenses.com, who's our partner in this show. They help us keep it going under normal circumstances. We actually get our gear from borrowlenses.com. In this case, Frederick had access to the camera on his own.
Yep.
But thank you to Borrow Lenses, because you make all about the gear possible. In fact, we're going to be back in the next episode with this baby right here. This is the... Oh, I might as well switch, since I've got all these cameras. I might as well switch to them.
You're going to go to the hand
Look
cam.
at my hand. Here we go.
Here's the hand cam.
There we go. Hand cam. That is the Sony RX1R. This is not a Sony show, by the way. We don't just do Sony cameras. It just happens that in the order in which we're getting to things, that's what we're coming up with. And this is sort of the opposite of the camera you've got. This is a non-removable, non-interchangeable lens. It's a full-frame 35mm f2 that is producing absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous images for me. It's also very expensive. By the time you add the electronic viewfinder, you're looking at about $3,300.
Wow.
But this is one of two things. This is Sony's Leica killer, if you accept the fact that it has a non-removable lens.
Right.
And we're also very curious to see whether this is the forerunner of the Sony full-frame interchangeable camera in the NEX line. Because if you put these side by side, I'll show you here what the similar sizes are. You can see that this camera is essentially the same size as the NEX6, NEX7. I think your NEX5 is a little smaller than these, but it's pretty remarkable. Pretty remarkable.
So that one, would it be a Leica killer, or would it be going head to head with the Fuji X100S?
Yeah, it's you're right. It's actually directly going after the X100S, except that it costs more than twice as much by the time you add all the features. So it is, in terms of specs and design, you're correct. It's much more like the X100S, but it is full frame. And even though you and I both love the X100S, as do many other people who have them, the image quality of this one is even better. So
really,
pretty impressive. Yeah.
What's the lens? What's the fixed focal length?
It's 35mm full frame, so it's exactly the same as the X100S. In fact, tomorrow I'm heading to San Diego for a workshop, and a friend of mine is going to be using an X100S. I'm going to be using the RX1R. I'll be shooting the same. That's an f2 equivalent, same focal length. It happens to be a crop sensor instead of a full frame. So it's going to be a fun head-to-head week to see who comes back with better images. We'll see how that goes.
That's cool. So
and I won't tell you who's whose.
The last question I have on that camera, the Sony, there is, does it have an audio in jack?
I think it does not. That's one of the complaints about it. But you don't get this camera for video.
You're not going to get that for video.
Yeah. It does.
It does?
There's a little red jack.
Check
it out.
That.
Check it out. I have not shot any video, and I'm not going to shoot video for my test with this. Or I could do it. I could get my 50-pound tripod with a fluid head and put this little teeny camera on it.
I know.
Right? All right, so let's
go now. Size does not matter.
That's right. Yeah, well then how come I can't use my little teeny tripod with my really big Nikons?
I'm going to leave that alone.
Yeah, right.
I'm not even going to touch that one.
All right. So let's pull this all together. So let's just wrap it up with, we want to look at your summary of the pros, your summary of the cons, and the final thing we're going to look at is who should get this camera. So tell me what you like. Just the bullet points again. What do you like about this camera?
I love, and I have my notes right here. So I love the sensor size. I love the fact that this has the same sensors that Nikon D7000. I like the form factor. I like that it's small and it feels like it's in my hand. Like I feel like I can grab it with my fist and just go out and shoot. And it feels really well made. It's really well constructed. It's a tool. I like the technology in this thing. I like the fact that they packed it with these intelligent automatic modes that let me just do, okay, I don't even want to think about all this other math and shutter speeds and f-stop stuff. I just want a blurry background. I'm shooting pictures of a pretty girl. I just want to shoot her and make it look good. So that's positive. The Wi-Fi, I think, is a killer feature on this thing, and the fact that I can instantly stream images either like in a tethered fashion or copying them over to an Android or an iOS device. That is killer. It's just the fact that it works so seamlessly and so quickly and easily, I think is awesome. So I love that. And this selfie mode is also a killer feature as well. So those are the main things that I love. The video quality out of this is excellent. You know, you're going to love that. The cons of this are getting my brain around the Sony menuing system. And,
let's stop there for a second. Let's just admit it. This is the world's worst menuing system.
I mean, I don't know. I haven't played with all menuing systems, so I can't say that.
Yeah.
But it's compared to the other ones, it's hard to navigate.
I've never seen one as bad as the Sony. I want to tell you that when we do get to the RX1R next time on the next show, it's got a brilliant menuing system. You wouldn't believe it's from the same company.
Interesting.
Go ahead.
I want to see that.
I just want to make this point for those who think we're nothing but Sony fans. Sony doesn't do everything right. That's for sure. Yeah,
they definitely could use some help with the menuing system, because I get buried every time. I feel like whenever I go in here, I'm trying to find stuff when it should be, conversely, the customization on this Olympus, I can set this up to be whatever I want it to be, and everything on it is configurable. Some things are configurable on here, but yeah, you're right. The menuing system could use some love.
And the Olympus, when you pick up the OMD, that menuing system makes sense right out of the box.
Yeah.
It's really not
but
a
it's still, I mean, it's deep. Like if you look at a blown out tree of all the selections in there, it's a big, like a family lineage Darwin tree of all the things that you can do with the OMD. So it's deep, but you're right. It's logically laid out. This one is tough. So, but with that, you're going to be confused a couple of times, I guess, as you kind of figure out where things are. They don't move. So once you figure out where they are, you kind of know where they are.
I swear they do. I remember hunting around saying, damn it, I knew that was here yesterday. Where did they move it to?
No, that's Android. That's what happens on Android when they update Android and things move around.
Yeah.
But it's all in the spirit of progress.
Okay, so what else is wrong with this thing?
So the menuing system. I'm using two phones this week because I'm testing, or for this next couple of weeks, I'm using the Moto X and my iPhone 4S here. And on both of these, I've installed the Sony Play Memories app. Play Memories, Play Mobile. So the Sony app that allows you to interface with the camera on both of them. The problem I had, it works seamlessly and smoothly on Android. On the iOS device, for some reason, if I transfer photos and then go shoot some more, then come back and say I want to transfer more photos into the phone, it gets confused about authentication and the app won't recognize the camera. So I have to force quit the app and then relaunch it, and then it'll find the camera again. So I think that's obviously a bug that they can fix, I'm assuming, pretty easily, since the Android version works great. The Android version doesn't have that problem. You run the app, you put the camera, there's actually a physical Wi-Fi button right here. You push this button and run the app, and it shows all the images on the camera. Done. Every single time. So that thing, so we talked about the audio in, we talked about there's no flash on this thing, there's no viewfinder, which isn't a con to me for this kind of camera, because I wouldn't buy it to have a viewfinder on it. And then the other, I think it's kind of an omission, is there's no wall charger for the battery in the box. To charge it out of the box, you have to plug the USB, cable into, it's got a charger, but you plug that into the camera, into the USB port on the camera with the battery seated inside its little, its little area in the camera, and that's the way it charges. Luckily, there are wall chargers available on Amazon, which we'll link to, and I bought one of them to charge the batteries, and they're cheap. They're like $30, and you get 2 extra batteries. So
I don't know what's with that. Here's this $2,300 camera.
Yeah.
Same problem.
No wall charger.
No wall charger. You got to plug in the camera, which means that if you want to charge the battery while you use the camera, charge one while using another. You can't. You got to buy. It's just stupid. I'm sorry. It's just no.
Yeah.
No
That was.
excuse for that.
I thought I was missing something. I was like, what? There's no charger in here. So I went ahead and bought one. So now I have 3 batteries for it and a wall charger, which is the way it should be. So if you go on a trip, you can exhaust. You can shoot all day and into the next one without worrying about charging. So those are the pros and the cons, the main pros and the cons. Bottom line overall, for $520 or whatever this is going for when you watch this review, I would say this is highly worth it. I mean, this is one of my favorite cameras right now because of its ease of use, and it's the camera that I reach for if I'm just going for a walk around the block, if I'm just, some friends invited me over to a party or something. I'm reaching for this one because it doesn't look like I mean business when I show up, and it's going to let me get that image that I want with that APS-C size sensor. So who is it for? I'd say this is for the general public. This isn't the same crowd that would be out buying the Olympus OMD. The OMD is more of a pro's smaller camera. This one is more of a consumer camera, clearly targeted at the consumer, and that's who wants this camera, and that's who's going to get it.
So one other use case I thought about for this, who uses, I think, an NEX5 is our friend Trey Ratcliffe.
Yes.
I think he has one. That's his backup. And I just went online and looked. You can get the body only for $434.
$434. Yeah, right. That's crazy.
Now, of course, that means that the lens is less than $100 because the body with the lens is $520.
Right.
But still, so you could buy it with a lens and sell the lens and probably do better. But if you're committed to the NEX line and you're going somewhere like a major trip to some faraway place, and you wanted to have a second body, the NEX5R might be the way to go. Might be the way to get you that second body. Yeah. There's something going on over your left shoulder there.
Yes, we are installing Windows in my house right now. Sorry about that.
Well, that's good. I think it's time to wrap up. Anyway, the timing is perfect. I want to thank Borrow Lenses once again because they've just been terrific in helping us keep this show on the air, and we plan to do many more. Again, look for the Sony RX1R coming up soon, and then after that, we're actually going to get away from cameras and look at some even more exotic hardware out there.
Yeah.
And I want to say thank you, Frederick, for letting me sit in your chair this time. I think the answer to the question is it's much more work on this side of the microphone.
I told you. Yeah,
it is,
I love
because on that side, you get to prepare and think ahead of time. But during the show, all you have to do is answer questions.
Yep. Thank you for recognizing that, Doug. I appreciate it.
Over here, you got to keep the show running. You got to figure out where you're going. You got to do all that stuff.
You got to be thinking one step ahead. Like, what am I going to ask after he finishes yapping about this thing? Yeah.
That's right. And you have to pretend to be paying attention all the time.
Exactly. Which you were doing a bad job of, by the way.
I know, and especially with my hand in the image. No excuse for that.
No, well, thank you. That was awesome.
At the moment, we don't do an audio version of this, so we don't have to worry about explaining to people what they can't see.
Right.
All right, but I want to ask one thing. I want to wrap up the show with you doing the final This Week in TWiP tagline at the end. So before we say goodbye to everybody, thanks a lot. It's been great, Frederick. And what are you going to tell us?
It's time to take that lens cap off.
That's it. All right.
We got to come up with a new one for all about the gear, man. We can't be using the TWiP one.
It's got to be something quirky. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks
we'll
very
think
much.
about that. We'll think about that.
We did good.
All right. Thanks, Doug. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye-bye.